Okay, so now we're gonna talk about we are going to talk about the goddamn story of Last of Us Part 2. Um, but before we begin, I just want to give a huge shout outs to the people who's done incredible work using the photo mode. The photo mode in this game is absolutely amazing. It is by far the coolest thing about Last of Us Part 2. And I think, again, it's nothing new to have photo mode in this game, but just seeing this game in photo mode and just like taking shots and just stopping the action for 1 minute to just take a break of all the nonsense in the game is really good. These are some beautiful, gorgeous shots. And I think, again, next to maybe God of War and Spider-Man, this is my favorite photo mode in video game. Maybe I'm trying to think. Odyssey had photo mode as well. Actually, Origins next to those, like Origins, Spider-Man, and uh, what you call that fucking game, and God of War. These are my favorite photo modes. Now, let's talk about story, because I want to basically say, let's start the records straight. Is the story of Last of Us Part 2 good? How would you rate it overall? Overall, I think the story of Last of Us 2 is okay. I think there was incredible, touching, and very, what's the word I'm looking for? Profound moments in this game. I do think there are moments where it has incredible highs to the point where it touches you. I think when the game flows well, when the story flows well and you understand certain meanings, and through reading documents, through listening to certain particular dialogues, through the story playing out, I think there are moments where this game shines. In particular, the Joel and Ellie's relationship is even stronger than before. However, however, where the game falls apart and what hurts this game from being a 9 out of 10, which, by the way, I could completely, after playing the game, I could completely understand why people are giving this 9s and 10s, because the incredible highs are so high. It's almost like a drug. You're like, Jesus Christ, this game is making me think, this game is touching me on an emotional level, and it is great. And more games, I appreciate when games and any media take risks. However, you have to take smart risks. And where Last of Us Part 2 fucks up and where it fails is through dumb character decisions, in my opinion. Very dumb and out of character decisions, if that makes sense. And very bad pacing. Very bad pacing is what kills Last of Us and what stops it from being as good and as, or even better than the first Last of Us story. Now, before I get into all this, I want to talk about marketing, because watching this spoiler cast, Neil Druckmann said two things that hit to me. He said that when it came onto the marketing, and I'm paraphrasing what he's saying. Again, I highly recommend you watch this video. He talks about in the marketing, they change assets from the retail to the trailers. And also, he did a lot of story beats, and a lot of how the story set up was very influenced by Metal Gear Solid 2. And as soon as he said that, I face palmed so hard. Let's talk about the marketing and then we'll go into it. I am all for not telling things to your fans, misleading fans at some point. Last of Us 1 did this. There was a moment in the interviews where what you call that, man, where where Neil Druckmann said that Ellie is not playable. And then when the game came out and we got to the winter section, Ellie part was playable. Ellie was a playable character in the game. Fine. I am used to this. I'm fine with misleading. But my biggest problem with this game and its false marketing is that you have scenes like this where Ellie gets captured, or you think she's about to get captured, and no, she finds out it's Joel, and you're thinking to yourself, "Aw, shit." And I remember this because this was State of Play. Why I remember this? Because State of Play is when they announced the release date of the game. And you're thinking to yourself, "Oh shit, Joel's Papa Joel is coming through halfway to the game. And we're gonna go on this adventure, just a little bit of adventure, and it's gonna be this not father and son, but daughter and father trip of vengeance, and Joel is gonna tell Ellie about the Firefly situation, and it'll be all great." But that's not what happens. In the full release, this is what happens. Jesse comes, and he's like, has the same line that Joel has. "You think I'll let you do this on your own?" What the fuck, Neil? That is false advertising. And there's moments like this through the game. There are moments where there are scenes where older Joel in the trailer showed older Joel talking, and then and in the final release, younger Joel is talking. That is very false advertisement. And again, that's where things get muddy. I understand protecting the story, but you can't have stuff like this and then you show us Abby in the 2007 teaser trailer of Abby. You can't have moments of that and then want to have moments like this. That creates false advertisement. So a lot of people came in expecting that Joel and Ellie's relationship to be continued. And while I personally, again, did not want to see that relationship continue because I didn't want it to be fucked up, ultimately, that is what the fans who really wanted it came in expecting. So then when they don't get it, because we get into our first problem of the game, Joel dies, that is where this game falls apart. But before we get into Joel's death, because that is a very significant problem of the game, let me talk about Metal Gear Solid 2. Now, Neil Druckmann said one of his inspiration was Metal Gear Solid 2 in terms of how it told the narrative of you playing as your false livelihood of playing as expecting to play as one character and then you play as another. Neil, sweetie, boo boo, my homie, brother, you are not Hideo Kojima. You're a smart man. and I think you have a very cool vision here. I truly do believe that, but you're not Hideo Kojima. The reason you are not Hideo Kojima is because you did not learn from Hideo Kojima's mistakes. Although I wouldn't even say Hideo Kojima made a mistake when he did that. I think he proved the point, and it fit with the themes of Metal Gear Solid 2, which is manipulation through technology and how the media can be controlled and what information can be sent out and what information can't be sent out. I think it works for the story Metal Gear Solid 2 tells. You, sir, failed on that. You failed through dumb marketing. You failed to you tried hiding Abby as a character, which you did not need to hide Abby as a character. You did not. All you needed to say about Abby's character is that she goes on the similar quest as Ellie, which she does. She goes through the same. How does that relate to one another? You'll find out when you play the game. That is all you had to say. Why did you need to take the Metal Gear Solid structure of story? Is beyond me. Again, I don't understand Neil Druckmann's mindset. Now, I'm debating as I read my script and my thoughts. Should I talk about themes? But before we get into all this, let me talk about the good things. I personally feel the good things about the story is, again, the Joel and Ellie's flashbacks are really, really good. There were moments where I teared up because of that. And this is where I say those parts in the story rival certain scenes, certain moments of the first game. And it's so fucking good. I couldn't stop tearing up on certain scenes. And I would also say, certain scenes in particular, let me talk about the flashbacks. Certain flashback scenes, them developing that relationship. What does that lie mean to Ellie? What does the lie Joel tells to Ellie? What does it do to their relationship? And through the course of the flashbacks, you see how that lie affected their relationship in either good or bad ways. But one moment in particular that touched me and generally made me cry was the space shuttle scene and Joel giving her this tape of going to, the astronaut because she always wanted to go to space. And throughout that whole entire flashback, they're putting on hats, they're doing a lot of dorky stuff, and having that child mindset. Again, this is when people say that this game has a lot of darkness in it. Yes, there's a lot of darkness, but when you get to the hopeful, and these moments are worth the darkness, in my opinion. Worth traveling through the darkness. So when you get to those sweeter moments, they are all much more richer. Scenes like this is where kudos have to be given to, again, Neil Druckmann and the team over at Naughty Dog for scenes like this. I generally think this scene is absolutely beautiful. By all means, it is not only a homage, it's an homage to the Left Behind DLC where Riley tells Ellie to close her eyes and imagine you fighting this person, the arcade, like play the arcade and their health bar will come up. This is on the same level as that, and I think even better, only because the way how they do lighting and the reflection of the helmet and sound sound design is incredible in this part. by far, my favorite scene. But of course, what it has to say about Joel and Ellie's relationship is that, again, these characters love each other, and I think these flashbacks are are the best part of the game for me. Um, and as I talk, I almost want to choke up because I love these characters so much, and I think these flashbacks are remind you of what you're fighting for when you play the Ellie sections. I would also say, in terms of good parts of the story, Abby's story that is really good if you could get past what she does to Joel. If you could get past that and you look at the story on a whole, when you get to a particular character named Lev, who is a trans character, I said transvestite, trans character in the game, which a lot of people have a problem with that. Last of Us already had trans, um, LGBT representation in the game, so I don't know why people was complaining. Um, but besides the point, her relationship with Abby, I mean, his, no, not his, bruh. Abby's relationship with Lev, I think, mirrors Joel and Ellie's relationship so well that there are multiple moments where I was like, this is Joel and Ellie. And it's because of that bond that Abby and Lev have, which Lev is also a Seraphite and Abby's a wolf. It shows the dichotomy between the Seraphites and the wolves, aka the WLF, the two factions in the game. It shows you the dichotomy, and it gives new perspective when you have Lev there explaining certain things or how the culture of the Seraphites work, how the Seraphites work as people. I personally feel um, when you get to the Lev sections are really good. I also want to talk about Abby's whole character arc is all about redemption, and once again, when you get to Lev, it is very clear what they're trying to achieve. Um, and I think these are where the story hits its strides. I'm gonna talk about themes a little bit later. We're gonna talk about themes a little bit later because if I talk about it now, it's not gonna make perfect sense. Because I want to talk about why this game fucking fails, and then I'm gonna go back into themes and what it means to me. Where the story falls apart, and I just mentioned it, is when you have Joel's death. Now, let's talk about Joel as a character. Joel as a character, let's be real honest with yourselves, people. If you look at it from perspective, sit back and look at Joel as a character. Joel, as we, Joel is not a good person. After his daughter died, Joel went down a very dark path. He lost his humanity for a long time. That is why Tommy didn't fuck with him anymore. You could tell that there's animosity towards Tommy and Joel when they meet up in at Jackson in Last of Us 1. He even says, I had nightmares for all the shit we did back then, bro. And Joel's like, but you survived because of me. Like, that shows you the dichotomy between those two. So, it makes perfect sense that Joel had to die. Joel's death is the most heart-wrenching thing I've had to watch. Now, I've seen some heart-wrenching shit, but seeing a character you spent time with, you had 7 years to prepare yourself for Last of Us Part 2. And this is a character that means so much to people. It was hard to watch him die. And it was even harder to watch him die like that, where you were powerless. Ellie has to watch that death. Again, very, 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 very sad and emotional moment right there. Very sad. Very sad and emotional moment right there. To see Joel get brutally beaten to death was hard for me. I stopped playing the game for 2 days because of how much that death really affected me. And I know that the game wants you to feel this way. But where this scene falls apart, in my personal opinion, I think, again, acting-wise, it's great. I think Tommy being chilled makes sense for Tommy's character. I like how everyone's just like... I like how Mel is the one that greets Tommy because it fits her character. Again, when you play Abby's thing, it makes more sense why she's like that. All of this, what's going on right now, makes sense. But what makes no sense is this line right here. Y'all act like y'all heard of us or something. This doesn't make any sense for Joel. Bro. Even just watching this shit is kind of like, oh my god. This scene makes no sense for Joel. And I'm gonna make my argument on why I don't like this scene. Why I like it and dislike it. Again, I think all the acting is great. I think Laura Bailey sells this scene as making her look like a villain really cool. Villain, and I want to use villain as a quote. And just the way how the whole scene is executed is so fucking good. I love how Joel asks, like, who the fuck are you? And Abby's like, yo, just guess. Like he's supposed to remember all the people he's crossed. And that's the thing. Joel has crossed and has hurt people. He has hurt people that were either doing their job, or they were good people, or they were bad people. Doesn't matter. Joel has taken lives. He said it to Ellie in part 1. When Ellie asked him, how did you know about that ambush? Joel said, I have been on both sides. I have done the ambush, and I have gone. I have fucking been on, and I had ambush happen to me. So I know the tricks, baby. I know the tricks, baby girl. And Ellie asks in a very human way, were they good people? I'm paraphrasing, but she says, were they good people as well you hurt? And he's like, think of it as ever you want. And Ellie's like, okay, well, obviously you've hurt innocent people that really wasn't asking for it. So it was only a matter of time before Joel's sins came to get him. Again, scene is executed. I think he needed to die. My problem with this scene is, again, out of character. Joel acting out of character. And the reason why I say he's acting out of character, because I'm going to remind people of this scene. Hold on.
You're doing. Keep driving. I got a kid, Joel. So do we.
But we have room.
Keep driving, Tommy.
Joel, not only parental senses kicks in, but his survival instinct kicks in. He gives into his foremost survival instinct. You cannot tell me, Joel, that Joel, the guy who's been through 20 years of fucking of pain and sacrifice and everything, this guy who's done horrible things, could not sense the aura of what's to go down. He could not know what was going on and was able to trust these people without any flinch, without any thinking or anything like that. That is completely out of Joel's character. Out of Joel's character. I do not buy that Joel would have allowed this to happen. He would have been like, Tommy, we don't know these people. We don't know any of these people. Why are you being so friendly? Like, again, the story did not convey that Joel, and I've heard people make this argument, well, it's 4 years, Joel has gotten softened up, but the story did not convey that. And I do not blame Mr. Troy Baker, because he actually beats himself up about this scene a lot in this video, and he also tears up about this scene, about how, difficult it was for performing the scene, and how, how it made him feel. And I get it, bro. It's not your fault. In fact, you did a good job at portraying, you know, how I think Joe would feel in that moment. Like, who the fuck are you guys? I don't know you guys. Like, just tell me what you got to tell me and get this shit over with. Again, Laura Bailey saying that line, the final line before she hits Joel is real. I love it. 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 I love how she tells Mel to like cauterize the room, like make sure he doesn't bleed out, so he can feel this shit. And I love the line.
You stupid old man. You don't get to rush this.
The simple fact she says that, it was so fucking cool. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's not Troy Baker's fault. It is fucking Neil Druckmann's fault. Because we are only 2 hours into this game. We have no recollection of how Joel is. We don't see them interact. Ellie and Joel interact. We have no time to get to understand and set up how Joel is as a character. We get set up on Ellie as a character and how she navigates and how she views Jackson and everything. You could tell she has friends, that she's like socially distant from people due to Joel's lie. She is very to herself, but also still has a little bit of that fun girl attitude that's from the previous thing. Why did Neil Druckmann not let us spend time with Joel before his death? Get to see his death? Get to feel it? Makes no sense. I know in this video, Neil Druckmann talks about the idea that there were cut content, and one of the cut contents was Joel's girlfriend. Joel was supposed to have a girlfriend, and my argument to that was you shouldn't have cut that. That would have even added more context to why Joel is why he's gotten soft over the years. Again, 2 hours of playing as Ellie does not make you feel, does not make you understand Joel softness. I'm sorry, but it does not. Since Joel is not there, I cannot convey why Joel is soft. I think if you had given us flashbacks of him interacting with the girlfriend along with Ellie, you could have saw how Joel has gotten softer. I think if you even wanted to go for it, you could have had, when the revenge plot hits off, I think what you could have had is a story of Ellie traveling with Dana, and then halfway to the story, um, Joel's girlfriend comes and joins the party, and and she she's that force between, either you could play her off as either a character that's like, hey, Joel, Joel will want you to go down this path of vengeance, Ellie. We have to avenge Joel. And then you can have other characters debate whether or not what Joel would really want out of this whole situation. Me personally, we all know Joel would not want Ellie to go down a darker path than he went. But that's beside the point. You can have her be that character that ignites the fumes. Be the character that's like, you need to go down this path, Ellie. You need to get revenge. We need to, because I love Joel. And you can have that dichotomy of who views Joel as a particular way. It's what Tommy views Joel, how Tommy views Joel, how Jesse views Joel, how Ellie views Joel, and how um, Ellie's girlfriend views Joel. That's the story route you could have went, and I think it would have worked, because then you could have had flashbacks of showing that. But this doesn't work. This scene does not work. I'm sorry, it does not. I will say, acting wise, this is amazing. Acting wise, this is by far amazing. Like like just seeing Ellie struggle and having to watch that, and she's begging Joel to get the fuck up. It's sad as fuck.
Joel, fucking get up. Please stop.
Ashley Johnson kills this part. She kills it. Ashley Johnson kills it. And seeing in this video her tear up talking about this scene had me tearing up, because seeing seeing Ellie's reaction was so hard. And she had to watch it. That was the even hard part. Again, 2 days I had to stop. But this scene just doesn't work. So after this scene, so let's move on. Is that after that, the whole game becomes a revenge quest. Not only does this not paint a good light on Abby, but after that you are angry. You're supposed to feel what Ellie feels, which is anger and frustration, and you're ready to kill all these motherfuckers. Which, again, understandable. Understandable. Completely. Kill Joel. You don't know these niggas. This nigga just spit on Joel's grave. Very disrespectful. And he's about to kill Ellie. And Owen comes in and is like, yo, we done the job. End it. And it's really good. However, you play Ellie's part for up to 10 hours and 10 hours up to 15 hours. I'm going to say 15 hours for me because I was exploring and I was doing other stuff. This scene, it not only paints Abby as a fucking disgusting human being, but after that you just generally don't like any of these characters. And the game expects you after the 10 hour and 15 hour mark to be like, okay, well, you just killed Joel. I just eliminated your friends. I just killed your friends. Killed a bunch of this girl's friends and whatnot. And yeah, like, I'm supposed to relate to these girls now. I'm supposed to feel some. I've done killed a bunch of her friends, and now don't you feel sorry that you killed all her friends? Don't you feel angry that you killed all her friends? And then the game is like, yeah, you just killed all her friends. Now, let's rewind the clock and let you play as Abby. I facepalm right at this part because I was like, wait, I'm playing as Abby now? And I made a prediction. I was like, halfway through the game, after you chill and you hang out time with Joel, you're going to flash into Abby's perspective and why she does what she does. And I said that was going to piss people off. But I had no idea it was going to be 15 hours into the game. 15 hours. By the time you get to Abby's part, you have done killed all of her friends. You have killed Mel, who is pregnant. You've killed Owen. Those two characters, or at least Owen, at least, if if you don't, if you're not really paying attention to to him, you would not care that he was the one that was like, yo, enough of this shit. You did what you came to do, Ellie. Let's get the fuck out of here. The game tries to set all this shit up and make you care about Abby's point of view. But the problem is, you just don't care because she just murdered Joel. Not only that, but this whole shit ruins the pacing of the game. You are at the near the climax of, of the game, and you are now supposed to sympathize with this girl and sympathize with her friends, which again, when you're supposed to sympathize with Nora, who basically is like, yeah, fucking I remember when we killed Joel. He screamed like a bitch. She says lines like that, and you're like, I'm supposed to sympathize with you? This is why when you get to the scene where Ellie beats the living fuck out of her, I'm just like, I'm just like, when you get to scenes like this, and Ellie beats the shit out of her with that pipe, I'm just like, and I literally said the same line Abby says. I was like, poor baby girl. Poor baby girl. You're not giving up your friends? Alright. It's okay. It's okay, boo boo. But you don't get to rush this torture and start beating the shit out of her. How were you supposed to feel sympathy for any of these characters? Again, why did Neil Druckmann do it in this particular order is beyond me. Because you cannot sympathize with any of her friends. I meet Owen. I'm like, oh, well, Owen. When Owen dies, I'm like, oh, well, alright. I don't care about him. Good that he died. Um, I was horrified when Mel died because she was pregnant, and I'm like, Ellie, you're crossing lines, and we'll get into Ellie's character when I talk about more characters I disliked. I just could not feel anything when I was playing Abby's part, and they're talking. I'm just like, it is hard to connect. There are interesting conversations, and I do like there is one scene with a very awkward scene, but a very interesting scene with Owen and her, and about how, you know, Owen's like, I'm tired of fighting. And it shows you how bad the war between the Seraphlies, which is called aka the Scars, and the Wolf, aka the WLF, has gotten to the point where people just don't want to fight anymore. And it's just so good. So particularly fucking good. And I like this scene until it gets ruined by a few minutes later. But to hear him talk about this stuff, I'm like, I get you now, Owen. I get you as a character. But is fucking players gonna get him? Or feel what he's feeling? No. Because you spent 15 hours chasing this motherfucker and you killed him. So I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And I do like how he calls out Abby on her revenge bullshit. Again, this whole playing as Abby does not work in terms of a narrative. Now, how I would have fixed this whole situation is play this in chronological order. So chapter 1, you would play as Ellie, or if you want, play as Abby. Chapter 2, you play as Abby some more. Again, establish that relationship. How does Abby feels about these characters? Who are these characters? Get to know them a little bit more. Then you play as Ellie. Then you play as Abby. Then you play as thing. Again, chronological order. Not have whole chunks of the game you play as Ellie, killing these fucking people you don't give two shits, and then say, feel bad that you just killed these guys. You don't. I'm sorry, that just does not work. This story relies on you to be caring about these characters, and you just don't feel it. I'm sorry, you just don't. I kind of cared for Owen, but again, I don't care. I just don't care. What redeems not Ellie. What redeems Abby's story is honestly her relationship with the two Seraphlies, which is Lev and Yara. Her willingness to help them, which she goes through a redemption arc, is really good. Again, Abby as a character is very good. I literally like Abby. I don't love her. I want to use like very loosely. I don't think she's a bad character, but I do not hate her as much as other people do. By the end of the story, I completely understood where she was coming from, due to the fact that, again, once you get the full piece of the puzzle, perspective, which is a big theme in this game, you are able to sympathize with her. And I think, again, her character works in terms of the story. And again, I think her part of this game comes off as like a Resident Evil part of the section. When you get introduced to Lev, I think this game literally becomes Resident Evil. I really, really like Abby because of that. And I think her gameplay is actually very unique because she has similar tools to Ellie, but she's more military. So she has, and due to the fact that she's more muscular, she has a lot of, um, things that Ellie can't do. Like, she can, like, the takedowns that she could do, and how she can do fire shotgun shells, and all this stuff that she could do. She has to craft shivs. She doesn't have a knife like Ellie does, so she has to craft shivs. She has all these mechanics and all these tools to help her out. Really, really, really makes her a really cool character. Again, but you don't appreciate that. There's even a boss battle in this game that is so fucking cool. And which make me say this is Resident Evil. This boss battle right here versus this motherfucker is so cool that I'm just like, Jesus. I'm like, this is Resident Evil. I love this. I love it. I love again, I just love Abby's part in this game. I love it. I love it. It becomes straight up horror. And I like it. Now, but once you get, like I said, once you get to the story, Abby's story, everything makes sense. Now, to dissect this game, I'm going to go over themes. Now, the first thing I want to say is that I see a lot of people say that this game is nothing but the theme is revenge is bad, and I want to say to those people that if you just took away that revenge is bad, I could see why you just took that away because, again, the way how Neil Cuckman and his writing presented this game, he didn't ask the audience to challenge and think further on. I really blame Neil Druckmann for how really bizarre this story is told. I really don't know how it is. Because if it was not told this bad, you would have had a really good game. A good story, Druckmann. I think your story is very, very good once it starts hitting its strides. But it just doesn't hit it. But some of the themes I picked up on is some of the themes I will also say Neil Druckmann and Troy Baker and Ashley has also picked up on. But these are the themes I picked up on personally when I played the game and when I beat it and had time to think about it and before I watched this video. Um, so here's some of the couple of themes that I picked up on. I would say the theme of pain and hatred. What does pain and hatred does to a person? What how pain and hatred cause people to make irrational decisions. And I use Ellie as a perfect example. And also, I would use Abby as well. Um, and when I say Ellie, let's start off by Ellie. What I mean by Ellie not letting pain and hate consume her, I really mean the idea that she makes irrational decisions. She makes decisions that are just plain old fucking dumb. I'm just gonna be honest. There was one point halfway through the game where Ellie finds out that Dana is pregnant. So you would think, oh shit, this is very profound moment, and you think, oh shit, we have to get this girl out of here. Let's get Tommy first, and let's get the fuck out of here. Or decide whether we continue this revenge quest or not. Jesse tags along, and he helps. He's like, "Yo, we should get to Tommy. Oh, get to Tommy." Ellie, with all fucking nonsense of an idea, is like, "We gotta get to Abby first." And it's like, why? Why do you need to get to Abby when you have a girlfriend? A girlfriend that is pregnant and that you genuinely care about, this woman that you care about, and I know that you care about her because there's a fucking journal entry talking about how much you struggle just keeping the friendship as just a friendship. Now, guys, let me talk to y'all for a second. Let me talk about that because it's like I can relate to that. I've been in situations where I have loved a female friend, and it was so hard for me to keep the friendship as just friendship when you have feeling, when you have deep feelings for a person. I can relate to that. I know what you're going through. So why the fuck are you making decisions that's like, you know, really, really, really baffling? And it's all because she can't let go of the hate of Abby. This hatred makes her make unrealistic decisions. It doesn't think about, well, Tommy is the last remnant of Joel in a lot of ways because they're family. Why are you not going after Tommy? Your whole biggest fear is that you don't want to die alone, that you don't want to be alone. So why the fuck are you going after Abby where you're going to be alone? It just, again, it fits with the theme, but it also kind of hurts Ellie's character. So that's one theme I picked up on. Also, Tommy halfway turns into a complete asshole, but that's beside the point. Another theme I picked up on was the sins of the father and how, or sins of the father, sins of the parents, how we as parents slash fathers, how we as people sometimes have to pay for our parents' mistakes in some of the worst ways and some of the best ways. We have to pay for our parents' actions, and you know, sometimes we take up the worst traits of our parents. Um, in particular, Joel. I think um, Joel's actions, of course, starts this whole story of killing the doctor. Starts this whole chain reaction of events that will come down to lead to his death, which sparks the rage and fuel of Ellie. But not once does Joel tell Ellie through their time the importance of why it's not good to chase after vengeance, or why it's not good for the mistakes that I made to be reflected on you. Never once did he have those conversations, and if he did, either Ellie wasn't paying attention or the writing is just fucking dumb. But Joel's never sits down and talks to Ellie about how, as a father figure, how my mistakes cost me everything, and how, do not make the same mistakes, Ellie. Be better. I want to use this terminology I used to one of my friends. I said, in God of War 2000 and God of War 4 on the PS4, is you did this so perfectly of the sins of the father, and how throughout the game, as you know, Kratos has done a lot of horrible and horrific shit. And as you play the game, it is him afraid to open up to Atreus about his mistakes. But one of the things he does later on is instill in Atreus the importance the importance of using, do not use blind rage. Do not use blind rage. It is okay to use rage as a weapon when you hone it. And this is why God of War 4 is just a fucking amazing game. He's like, you hone that rage. Rage can be used as a weapon, yes, sure. But when you hone it, you are it can be used for very devastating shit. As Kratos has done, he has learned how to hone his rage. That's why when the first boss battle, he's able to take those blows and not feel anything and just be like, whatever. When you hone it, it is good. When you let that rage consume you, it has devastating effects. And throughout the whole game, Atreus is teaching Atreus, his son, lessons of life as what a parent should do. Joel never does this. He mentions, and through the courses of the game, Ellie mentions like, oh well, Joel told me about this tactics and all that, but he never once told her to never use those tactics. The importance of not using those tactics. Why you should not go down this dark path. Why you should not do certain things. He fails to teach her those lessons, and I think that ultimately leads down to Ellie's downfall and why she goes on this whole revenge quest. I think another theme that this game touches on is redemption and how searching for forgiveness and peace of mind after all the horrible shit you've done. I guess a perfect example of that would be Ellie and Joel, um, the Joel and Ellie relationship, Abby and Lev relationship. For Joel, in a lot of ways, Ellie's his second chance at life, his redemption from all the horrible things he's done. Um, and for Abby, it's the same thing. Joel and Abby are basically the same characters at different points in life. And Abby sees Lev, the Firefly character, as a means as a redemption. That's why she cares so much about helping these kids, because the death of killing Joel, the act of killing Joel, bring her no peace. And we see that through flashbacks in the game. We see that through many of, not even just memory flashbacks. We see that through the dreams that she has, that it haunts her, that she had to do that, and that it brought her no peace because her dad is still gone. No matter what type of shit she does, it's never going to bring back her dad. And so throughout that part, she goes through the motion of just your typical regular Dave, and it isn't until again she gets to Lev. Lev shows her an outing. That is why when we get to the boss battle of Ellie and and Ellie and Abby, that is why those two have she doesn't kill Ellie, because Lev redeems her in a lot of ways, and that honestly leads us into perspective. That's another theme of this game that this game throws at you. Last of Us 1 had this with David and his crew, how David views Ellie and who thinks who's just. And in this game is Abby's point of view. Once you learn Abby's point of view, which is you know, she's justified for how she felt and what she did, then this whole, you know, game becomes a thing. And you can see Abby's point of view change through Lev, because throughout the whole game and throughout our experience as playing as Ellie, we think we think both groups are both fucking insane. But when you gain that perspective of the Seraphites through Lev, because Lev talks about how the the Seraphlies were not as violent as they were. They wasn't doing creepy, crazy shit like hanging people up and slitting their fucking stomach. They wasn't doing any of those crazy stuff. And it isn't until the main leader, the lady that you will come and see posters and everything about, died, that people misconstrued her message and made it into an insane assault cult. And there are people in that cult that are actually good. If you actually read some of the letters, some of the people who went to the cult is because they were either A, scared of the the WLF, or or they were they just generally look for safe haven by going to the Seventh. Lev brings all of this up, and it changes Abby's perspective on their whole situation. Not so much agreeing with them because they're still crazy cuckoo people, but she realizes, and through that, we realize that the Seraphlies, there are good people, just like there are some bad people in the Seraphli. There are some good people in there that just wants to live. Um, they just have a very jaded mindset. Um, Another theme that the game gets across is obsession slash um, addiction. I think this game is riddled with that. In particular, near the end of the game, where we have Ellie, um, after the events of the game transpired, months have passed, and Ellie, goes through, living a normal life, living her best life, and she's a farmer, and she's like living her best life, and she's just peaceful and whatnot, or at least trying to make a peaceful, normal life for herself. But of course, you know, PTSD kicks in, and she reminded of like not being able to save Joel, and it's what springs her kind of back into the lifestyle of going after Abby again, the obsession and of not letting things go, and how obsession and addiction will cost you everything. By the end of the game, um, Ellie has literally nothing. Her greatest fears comes to pass, and when you think about it, it's really sad. But I'm gonna get into more of that when we get into um, later on. But the obsession of Abby, of finding Abby and killing Abby after this, is all that keeps her going. Um, you could also see obsession through Tommy, which Tommy's a fucking asshole by the end of this game. Like coerces. He's like a fucking, honestly, the way how Tommy is in this, he's like uh a drug lord. He's like, yo, here's this map, here's this drug. I know you want to go after her. Come on, take the drug. And like a recovering a recovering drug addict, Ellie is tempted, but eventually goes back to her old ways as an addict. When you think about it, when you really think about it, it is Ellie basically going back into drugs, going back into the rage. Like because of Tommy. Because Tommy's obsession won't let this shit go. Because all he has now is this obsession to find Abby as well. So that's the theme I picked up on. And last but finally, forgiveness is the final theme I took off of this. And this relates to the ending of the game, which is when Abby and Ellie have this final fight, which is such a good part. I'm also there is another theme I'm gonna talk about, which is mirroring. But yeah, like the idea of forgiveness and letting go is what ultimately allows Ellie to finally grieve. It finally allows her to let go of the pain, and it allows her to move on with her life. Finally. I want to make a comment on forgiveness because one of the things that I feel like people, based off of watching a lot of people's playthroughs and watching a lot of people's reaction, is that Ellie should have killed Abby. Now, let me say that I don't personally think Ellie should have killed Abby. In fact, when it got to this scene, I started crying because I was like, my favorite character is literally being destroyed. Yeah, a lot of tears in this game, as much as the first game, but on a different way. Um, it was forgiveness does not mean that you have to be buddy buddies and be okay with the person or okay with what they did. Forgiveness is literally making peace with things, coming to terms with how things are and moving on. And I think this scene is so powerful because Ellie, as in the main menu, is at the abyss. One of the I would say um analyzing the boats of the main menu, which is the boat. I would say the boat is a metaphor for the abyss, going through the abyss of darkness, and Ellie is at the peak of darkness. At this moment, she is at the peak. This girl is literally is willing, and I repeat, willing to kill Lev when Lev himself is out cold, don't know what the fuck is going on, is willing to kill this innocent person, which, mind you, this innocent person, and he is innocent because Lev doesn't is going off of Abby's perspective, and in fact, Lev actually saves Ellie by bringing um Abby back into the light and be like, no, because be like, no, you're better than than Ellie. Ellie's killed all your friends, yes, but you can be better than Ellie. You have to let her go. It's too much. You won the battle. You beaten Ellie to the pulp. Let her go. I've seen what you can do. In fact, your friend Mel says that stop lying and pretending that you're a good person to these kids. No, you are a good person. You are a good person, Abby. Because after everything you've done for me, I know they're just good in you. So let her go. Because Dana would have died. Dana and Dana would have died, and Ellie would have died in that scene. So Lev did save her in a sense, because she reminded Abby of all her good deeds, and reminded her of her humanity. So when Ellie goes and is like, I'm gonna fucking cut this kid if you don't fight me, this is where Ellie is just crossing lines. That is just like, you're a fucking monster, Ellie. Like, bruh, no. So again, like, the whole point is that Ellie learns to forgive, decides to let go, and I'm so I find it funny because like I'm even thinking back more now into like people who really wanted Ellie Ellie to kill this girl, that there would be no peace with Ellie. Ellie would have just become Abby, or even worse, she would have became David, because we seen that she almost becomes David. Hell, there are moments where her actions are almost a mere reflection of what she did to David in Last of Us Part 1, the first game. So, for the most part, I think the theme of forgiveness is truly there, especially near the end, where the final conversation with Joel is that her saying, Joel is saying, you know, I don't I don't mean to be a bother, and I know that your death would have mean something, but if I could go back and change things, I would do it again. That's his way of saying, I love you, baby girl. I would do not I would go through the ends of the earth for you. Just like Lev would go to the ends of the earth for Abby would go to the ends of the earth for Lev. That's Joel going through the ends of the earth for Ellie. And it is it is Joel saying, not Joel really saying, but it is Ellie saying, I cannot forgive you for what you did, because my life would have mattered. And 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 it is perfectly okay for Ellie to feel that way, because Ellie has no recollect. She really wanted her death to mean something due to all the bullshit she's been in Last of Us, in the first game. After losing Sam, after losing Riley, after losing Tess, after all the deaths and sacrifice, she really believes that she deserves she deserves it. She should have died, so those deaths would have mattered. And I have my issues with that. My personal beliefs is that Ellie, even if we did get the cure and whatever, who's to know what the Fireflies would have done with the cure? Who would have known what, if they would get the cure to other people? How do you know there wasn't going to be a power struggle from other factions to get the cure? It would have probably made things even worse. We have no idea. And I would love to hear you guys' opinion on that. But for the most part, Ellie choosing, Joel saying, you know, I would have done it again, and Ellie saying, I don't think I can forgive you, but I would like to try, is the most powerful thing. It brings this man to tears. Like, bruh, she chooses to let go of the pain. Because she knows. I think in this scene she knows that if she does not let go of this pain, she will end up hating Joel for the rest of her life, and it will not make her be able to to get close to anybody. So she chooses to let him go. And again, Troy Baker plays this so fucking good.
I'll see you around.
Yep.
I love how his voice cracks up based off of her basically saying, I'll learn to forgive you. Again, forgiveness is the hardest thing for humans to do. But I feel like with with Ellie learning to forgive and letting Abby go was the smart thing to do, because she learned to keep her humanity. And that's the most powerfulest thing Ellie could have done, was keep that humanity. Because she would have, if she had lost her humanity, she would have been another Abby. And like I said, even worse, she would have been David of all people. The worst. But she keeps that humanity. Which I think is very powerful when you really sit there and think about it. Again, I think Last of Us 2 has moments where the story really hits you. And I think it sometimes be very profound at most places. But the story beats I just mentioned really, a lot of the story moments really, really, really does not hit if you don't care about Abby's cause. And you don't. And another, I would say, two more themes that this game touches upon is the idea of mirrors, how Joel mirrors Abby, and how Lev mirrors mirrors Ellie. That relationship mirrors each other's, of how like through circumstances they learn to rely on each other. They both don't see eye to eye at first, but then learn to bond and grow with each other the same way Joel and Ellie learns to, Lev and Abby learned to. So by the end of the game, the final fight is literally Ellie. It is Ellie learning. It is Ellie becoming the doctor, which is Abby's dad. It literally mirrors each other. Like Lev is Ellie in the hospital bed, not knowing what the fuck is going on, don't know what's going on, and is unconscious. You have Abby, who is fucked up, by the way, which we're gonna get into the last theme of this game. And she is Joel trying to protect, this time not fighting for herself, because she says this. He's not a part of this. Not fighting for herself, fighting for the person that she cares about, which is Lev. The last thing that she cares about in this world is Lev, and it is Ellie becoming Abby's father, fighting for a cause, no matter what the consequences is. And I think that is very powerful. I think that is really dope when you look at it from that lens. How it all comes back into one big circle. How again, Neil Druckmann's theme, the cycle of violence, ugh, whatever, all comes into play in this scene in particular. This scene is so fucking good. I love this scene. I love this scene. Anywho, fun fact actually about this scene: if you actually knock Abby down with the final blow, she actually does beg. She actually does beg. That makes this scene even more. That makes it even more sad. But the last theme, or the last thing I want to talk about, is the idea of cost. What what does your actions cost you? And we see that through multiple depictions of all the characters, and of course Joel. I mean, let's start about Abby. Abby's cost. Abby's cost of going on this revenge quest cost of her friends, and also cost her everything. It cost her friends. It cost her thing, and also punishment. Cost and punishment. I should say is the theme. Is another theme. In particular, more punishment. The punishment for going on this revenge quest on Abby is losing her friend, losing all her friends, losing Owen, who by and large Owen still loved Abby unconditionally, loved her. The problem is Abby just couldn't let go of that pain, which alienated that relationship. But he still loved her. But due to the fact that Abby's actions, she could never be with him, and it cost him his death and multiple deaths. What is Ellie's cost? Ellie's cost is losing of the finger, which is really fucking sad. And I don't even know how you rip off somebody's finger, but that was fucking gruesome. But yes, the idea of losing of the finger and losing, not only just losing a finger, but losing Dana, a woman that for the longest has been trying to get, and now she had that happy life with Dana, loses it because she chose vengeance. Um, Also losing, of course, the kid is the cost of going upon this vengeance. But going back to Abby for 1 second, Abby's sins does catch up with her because she does, after that, put Lev in extreme danger, and she gets captured and tortured for months. So again, these are moments in which characters do things that sins eventually catches up to them. Their choices does catch up to them. And I think what makes it more sad on Ellie's point is that she loses all this, and she loses the fingers, and losing the fingers allows her to not be able to play the guitar the way how Joel taught her. And by losing them, she is unable to use the gift Joel gave her, which is playing guitar, making music, and honoring the memory of Joel through losing those fingers and through going on this vengeance. That is ultimately where Ellie falls That's where Ellie falls apart. It's sad. It is really sad when you think about it. When you look back at it, you can make the argument, vengeance is bad. Yeah, I guess. But when you sit down and really think about it and reflect on everything that happens, then damn, that is a tough pill. Especially losing the fingers and not being able to honor Joel's memory by creating music. And if you read her journals, you see that she's been able to create music and make has lyrics for music. There's a beautiful scene with with Dana that I said earlier in the video where she's singing "Take on Me," and again, like, just these moments are are so good. Again, Last of Us story is Last of Us Part 2 story. When it hits, it hits. When it falls, it falls. But that right there, the death, not being able, the consequences of vengeance hits hard when you reflect on a lot of the things. But I think because Ellie's find peace and made peace, now she has to go and find herself. She has to go and figure out what's her next plan. Now she's in the process of healing. And I think that's the powerful thing. Like, that's what I took out of it, is that now she's in the process of healing. True healing. Truly healing. She's in the process of. She had to lose a bunch of stuff. Hell, Ellie is in the place that she says she never wanted to be in, which is alone. But through being alone, through being in your worst fear, comes salvation, comes reflection, comes moving forward. And I think that's what I took out of it. That's what I took out of the story of Last of Us Part 2. Through the darkness, through the depths of the darkness, you could see the light. You could come forth to the light. Owen says that, we stopped looking for the light. And I'm like, he has a point. This game does hit you with some dark, twisted shit. This game is not easy. But again, when you sit down and think about the ending, you think about everything that happens and transpired, and you look to and you go through the darkness, you will eventually see the light. And when you see the light, it is great. I feel like Last of Us Part 2, after everything I talked about themes, I talk about story things, I really personally believe Neil Druckmann had a good idea, and I don't think he did things from malicious intent. I think he had good ideas. Execution was the key. I consider this game to be, and I see why people saying this, that this is the Last Jedi syndrome. But Last Jedi had a syndrome of subverting expectations. This never, I don't feel, at least from me, subverts expectations. Everything that the story tries to accomplish. The problem is poor pacing and character decisions ruined this game. Um, Again, where they take certain characters, I don't agree with. Like I said, I don't agree with Ellie being this fucking dumb and like just does irrational things. There are moments where she regrets her decisions, and reflects. But there are also moments, a lot more moments, where she just does things like killing baby and just like threaten to kill Lev and just acts completely like a fucking lunatic, a monster. And again, Ashley Johnson does a great job of performing this. Again, Ashley Johnson is the MVP of this whole game, but for the most part, by the end of this story, while I do think Ellie Ellie goes through a coming of age story. This is a coming of age story. Ellie goes through growth. I ultimately don't like any of the characters in this game. I don't like Tommy. Tommy is the one that convinces her to go back into to this pool of pain and suffering. I don't like Abby because she kills Joel. And I seriously don't like Ellie for all the dumb decisions she makes and the sacrifice that she makes to steal a line from a wise man.
You best stick to them books, because mark my words on this. Vengeance is an idiot's game.
Like you could say that the themes are is so kind of thing, but for Ellie's point of view, it's not. And I think Joel should have instilled that in her, and Joel did not. But with that being said, I just want to say some closing stuff and then wrap all this up. Last of Us 2 is a good game. I think it could have been an amazing game if not for bad storytelling in terms of pacing and character decisions, because I just don't agree with Ellie at by the end of this thing. But I truly, 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 truly love. I truly, truly love some of the story beats. I like characters like Dana. I didn't even talk about certain characters like Dana. I thought she was very lovable. I think Dana is such a lovable character. Ah, I loved Dana. And the moment I fell in love with Dana is when she she where you have to run away from a bunch of runners and clickers, and Dana's the one that's like, um, Ellie's mask gets broken, and Dana is like, Ellie, your mask is broken, and she doesn't know that Ellie's immune. She tells her early on, but Ellie doesn't believe it. Her mask, Ellie's mask is broken, and so Dana's first reaction, without hesitation, was to go and take off her mask and give it to Ellie. I was like, this girl's a right to die chick. It is a shame that halfway to the story she becomes. That's another problem I have. It's a shame that halfway to the story she becomes pregnant and can no longer help out. I really wish Dana was more throughout the story because she's really cool and she gives a lot of liberty to Ellie. Also, she opens up the world of Last of Us, and that's why I don't need in terms of like how she opens up the world of The Last of Us. She literally talks about another group, which is the what the fuck you call the group? The Ravens, and they're a group in New Mexico who are like vulture s type people, and they take in multiple wives and whatnot. Sort of interesting. I would love to see them depicted. So yeah, and also she talks about her religion and how through dark times she does pray. Um, and how she prays for Ellie all the time, which great character. I don't have not much to say on Dana. I'm just spitballing right here. Again, Tommy's a piece of shit. Don't like his character by the end of this. Um, Especially, I can't believe that he made Ellie go back to that lifestyle. It's because of him. Ellie goes back to the thing. Tommy's fuck Tommy. Um, who else? Jesse. I think Jesse is a really cool character. Not much on Jesse. You spend a little time with him, but Jesse is the most sensible character. He's basically me. He brings up very sensible things to Ellie, like how do you not know that Joel didn't cross somebody before? And he just was saying a lot of sensible things, and how, maybe this is a bad idea to do that. And it is a shame that he dies, and he dies because he just dies because, oh, him trying to help his friends. That's the sad part of it all, is that he dies because he wants to save his friends. That sucks. And that's also a cost of vengeance. That's another that's another cost, and paying for your sins of vengeance. That relates to the theme. Um, who else that I didn't get to touch on? I think that's pretty much it with characters that I touch on. In terms of factions, out of all the factions that they do, we get to see, out of all of them, um, the Seraphites are my favorite. I do like how I like their whole idea, their philosophy. I know it's not good, but I do like how they whistle at each other for communications, and majority of the Seraphites use arrows and stealth to like take down their prey. Again, really cool, really like it. Don't have much to complain uh, about that. I'm just trying to say what else before I finish off my thoughts on Last of Us. I think that's pretty much it. I think that's pretty much it. I don't really have much to say uh, about the story anymore. Oh, I will say, last final character, Owen. I think Owen is the only character that is from Abby, other than Lev and Yara, that I actually did kind of care about, only because he does talk about, to paraphrase a lot, what I'm saying is that he basically talks about letting go of the hatred, and he also criticized Abby for not moving on when Abby told him, like, you haven't grown up, you're still a child, you're still that same child that I known. And Joel's like, I mean, Owen's like, you haven't either. You spent your whole life and your body and your whole life chasing after vengeance that costs you everything. You could have had this relationship with me. You could have been the one that was pregnant and all that stuff, but you chose this lifestyle. You chose to not let go. You got lost in the darkness, and you stopped looking for the light. I think Owen is a very good character when if you take your bias off. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else for any other characters. I don't care about Mel all too much, except when she dies and Ellie kills her, because I think that's when Ellie's vengeance is gone a little too far. Um, Isaac, I know Isaac is another character. I don't have much to say on Isaac. He's the leader of the LFF, and he's a perfect example of just giving into hatred. And his plan was really fucking dumb. Like, yeah, let's go attack let's go attack the Seraphlites at their home base. Okay, that's a very very smart move to do. Anywho, overall, my thoughts on Last of Us Part Two. To wrap all this up, I think Last of Us Part Two is a good game, and it is a game I'm gonna be thinking about. Games like these are gonna be games that's gonna make me think about. This is always gonna be on the top of my head. It's not on my top five of the year. I still think Final Fantasy VII Remake is better than this game in terms of like story. Um, but I will say that in terms of like memorability, in terms of like profound thinking, I think I will remember this game for years to come, just like the first Last of Us. Again, when this game hits its stripes, it hits its stripe. But this game does not. I feel indifferent about it. I don't hate it, nor do I love it. But I don't regret playing it by far. Again, the gameplay work. The gameplay is just a vastly improved game, and I do think some story beats hit. I just think sloppy character decisions and slopping pacing ruins this story. It's going to be interesting to see in years to come how people react to this game when the heat dies down, when we move on to games like Ghost of Tsushima that comes out literally in 3 weeks, how people react to this game. But for the most part, I I like this game a lot. I wouldn't say I love it, but I like it a lot. I like it. In fact, I don't even. You want to hear some funny stuff? Um, this game made me love the first game even more. It strengthened my love for the first game even more. I don't know how that's even possible, but it does it, and I'm so grateful for that. Mm-mm-mm.
But wait, there's more.